hopefully everyone's still there. Richard, excellent. You're there, fab. Come on. Let me know if this is starting to share or not.
Yeah, I can see it.
Excellent. Great. Okay. Morning, everyone. Right, I'll get started then, and then I'll have everyone out by midday. Thank you very much for all dialing in. Is that Anya down the bottom? I can see. It is. Hi, Anya. I haven't seen you before. Howdy. Nice to see you. Excellent. Dawn's on. Fab. Excellent. I'm assuming that's Caroline that's letting everyone in. So thank you, Caroline. You're a superstar. Okay. So in case you missed it, apologies for not sending out a new invite yet. I've got to do it after this one. I will do because this one runs out. So I'll run through, and I will have you finished by midday. So there's a few things planned for today. There's a second, I think, health and safety thing I'll do at the start. There's another one that's come up that I think I should do. And then I wanted to do a lot around the accountability framework. I wanted to talk around that. And it's good to see, I can see a couple of providers on here. So Danny, I saw you sneak in there. It'd be good to get your sort of thoughts and opinions on this as well, because I think we last talked about this, was it the start of last year? I'd never really heard of it. And then I saw the updates, and from going from never hearing from it till the start of last year to now, I'd never realised how much of a massive impact this was having. So I definitely want to go through that. And then I want a quick talk around dissertations, EPA gateway, that whole piece around what should really be going on around about now between line managers and apprentices. And then we'll have any discussions at the end. But first of all, is Aaron on? I just want to say a massive thank you to Salford Uni. I know there's some others out there that when, and this is part of the safety bit as well, when apprentices are made redundant, it's a really tough time, because I was made redundant in one of my past, my only other proper business that I've worked for since leaving uni, and it's a horrible, horrible thing, and it's difficult enough trying to actually find a job if it's just the job you're trying to find, but then also if you're an apprentice, trying to find somebody to take on that apprenticeship as well. I hadn't really appreciated how much extra, not only pressure you must be feeling, but how much of a different process it is that you go through, and how much of a bigger ask it is. So I just wanted to say thank you to Salford Uni for what they're doing to support at least one apprentice right now. And I know some of the others as well have responded to that request, but I know they've also done this in the past as well. So Aaron, if you want to listen back to this, thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, so the health and safety moment I thought I'd do this time is something that's come up maybe 4 times in the last 12 months. And I want to talk around ADHD and neurodiversity. Richard, I know you did a huge section on this at the conference in November. And it just so happens that I thought these are nice images, that was all. I thought it explained it really well. But the importance and the impact, again, the last 12 months, 15 months, it's not something I'd really probably engaged with or I'd seen as much in and around apprentices. And then the last, as I say, year and a bit, this is coming forward in places I didn't expect it to see, and also people not realising themselves where they've got neurodiversity and a bit of neurospicy in them. And it's been coming up in different sort of ways as well. I think probably the sensory bit on the left is one of the things that was that came up around the hyper focus, and just how people was in one case it was how somebody's sort of moods almost changed, them as a person changed, and you could see how it was impacting their abilities. It's not something that you choose, is it? It's part of you. And it was interesting trying to find them the right help as well. That was one of the things, as a whether you work with them or however you know them as a mentor or just whatever it is, trying to give people the right guidance. I didn't know what the right answer was, to be honest. And definitely go back, see your doctor, try and get any sort of formal diagnosis seemed to help. But then I think also on the right-hand side is around being a bit more considerate around that. I know it was a huge thing that you did, Richard, with what was the guy from National Highways? He was brilliant. What was his name? He was fantastic.
Um,
What was his name? He was brilliant, was it? And his line
he,
manager, she was fab as well.
you've got me now.
Me too. It'll come back to you hopefully before the end of this. But
Yeah,
it was when she spoke as his line manager, I thought that was really brilliant. Everything she said around adapting, even like the journey like to the ICE conference and how she managed him, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And taking that time and that consideration for that person, I thought was wonderful. And it just came
Amy.
up again.
Sorry, Joseph and Amy.
That was it. That was it.
Yeah,
Brilliant. And it was on that right hand side, just around the sort of how you consider, what was it? Replace harsh criticism by encouragement and be patient. I know I can certainly not be patient at times. People tell me off for that. But little things like that, they can have big impacts. So yeah, it was just as opposed to jumping to the assumption that actually somebody hasn't done something or somebody's avoiding doing something or they're actually doing something wrong. Maybe sometimes it's because it's not a choice. It's how they're set up, and it's how you as the person that's interacting with them behave. You shouldn't just jump to these assumptions, I suppose, is what I was trying to get to. I don't know if anybody's got any comments on that, but I just thought it was something to mention because yeah, it's been coming up a lot more recently. Caroline, go for it.
Yeah, I think possibly there we're looking at perhaps some of the ways of managing it. I think actually there's ways of utilizing it as well, because there's lots of, when we're placemaking, we're thinking about the transport systems, we're thinking about the places that people we're creating for people through construction and the built environment. Actually, these are the challenges that the built environment is now seeing, and actually having that perspective is really, really important to the projects that we deliver and the outcomes that we're achieving. So I think actually there's a positive spin on this as well. The more perceptions we've got around these types of things is really useful to projects and business output. So
Awesome.
Positive as well.
Thanks, Caroline. Danny?
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, working with a lot of employers, I think it's really beneficial to see the larger employers shouted about it, for want of a better phrase, because when I work with the SMEs and things, they're seeing that and they're seeing the kind of raise and awareness of it, so it's not as kind of out there as it used to be. So the more accepted it becomes by these larger organizations shouting about some of the great work they're doing, it's helping the SMEs to understand that, oh well, we can do this as well, it's not as challenging as we thought, there's a lot of benefits to doing it, we can really make a positive impact for it.
Agreed. Thank you for that, Danny. And again, full credit to you, Richard, for that whole afternoon in November. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it. I don't know what anyone else thought, but it was that whole piece around neurodiversity. I thought it was fab. So thank you for that. Okay, right. I'll crack on now then. So the accountability framework. So this was, as I said, this was something that I'd first bumped into last year. And when it got bandied around, I suppose I started looking into it because it was pointing at me as an employer, but when I looked into it, actually this is very much just for providers. This is what they're held to account for. And again, it'd be great to get some input from you guys. But just looking at some of the metrics, I think when I measured myself on this last year, I think I had eight apprentices at the time, and if 2 of them failed, I think that meant I would have been at risk according to this scoring. So I've just snipped out the links in there in case anybody wants to have a look at the updated guidance. And I think this came out, there was initially in January this year, and then they've tweaked it again in February. So I'll share that afterwards. So yeah, 17th of February, this was updated. And just some of the changes, they said they were suspending a couple of indicators around breaks in learning, endpoint assessment data, and off-the-job training. The breaks in learning bit I wanted to highlight because I saw that as a positive. It has always felt like people feel a break in learning is a bad thing. And I think that where there's an appropriate place, it's a brilliant thing. For example, I was having a look back through for something that came up in National Apprenticeship Week. There's an apprentice I bumped into who was pregnant, but I hadn't given her the update on this. And that's a really good use. I hadn't checked with her, was she aware that actually that's a really sensible thing to do? Enjoy what you're going to go through. It's an awesome thing, but you don't want that pressure of having to do, what have I got to do for my apprenticeship? How does it impact it? And I thought something like that, like a break in learning there, is absolutely the right thing to do. It's giving people the space and the chance to have a life sometimes. So I thought that was a positive. Feel free if anybody wants to jump in while I'm running through these, by the way, or with any extra comments. So it says here that the reason for that is to protect the experience of apprentices, increase achievements, and improve quality. So that's why this is the aim of the accountability policy and framework. I'm going to pause there before I proceed, just in case there's any providers that want to give me any comments around, does that feel like what the actual accountability framework is set up to do? Is that how you guys perceive it? Is anyone brave? No? Okay, that's fine. Oh, go on, Danny.
I was just going to agree with you and say, yes, everything is fine. You may continue with your presentation. No, it all sounds good.
Good. Okay, grand. So then looking at some of the requirements then, so we'll assess organisations with apprenticeship achievement rates of less than 50% at risk. Greater than or equal is 50 to 60 needs improvement. So what they're saying here is unless you're above that 60%, there's some sort of either needs improvement or risk. I can't remember, and Caroline might tell me what it was, but what was there was a target. Was it something like 65 or 66%, something around there of the achievement rates? Is that what it was?
Was 67%, but it seems to have gone rather quiet.
Interesting. So yeah, so that feels like a very high. Maybe we should expect that, you know, as apprentices and employers and providers. Maybe we should all expect that 60% actually this isn't a problem, but it was just something to that stood out. So then as we go into this, we'll assess organisations. So this was retention rate of less than 52% at risk, and between 52 and 62% as needs improvement. So I suppose is that retention rates, that's staying on, not leaving, not withdrawn. Okay, so that seems like that should be more than reasonable to be able to be achieved. An interesting thing that I hadn't really considered, and again, it'd be interesting to get both from apprentices and providers' point of view, that apprentice feedback actually feeds into this whole accountability framework. So I didn't know that, and maybe I'd completely missed it last time. But apprentices, they themselves can feed into. So if they're happy with the service they're receiving, apparently you can go onto your account, you can feed that. But also, if you're feeling you're not happy with certain things, you can provide that feedback. And there is no at risk, but it certainly did say that organisations with feedback less than 2.5 will be assessed as needs improvement. So I can definitely see one apprentice on here before I pick on him. Do you want to volunteer to let me know if you've ever heard of this? Or shall I keep picking on you? Harry, sorry. I know it's always me. Just out of interest, as an apprentice, did you know that you could do this? Did you know you could give feedback on your provider?
I have heard of it. I haven't done it myself. It was briefly mentioned in one or two courses at uni.
Excellent. Thanks, Harry. Sorry to always pick on you.
No problem.
Please keep coming.
I will.
But that's interesting. You know, who's aware of this? You know, and how I'm sure all the providers are aware of this, and it's a huge task that's been asked. But both from us as employers as well, I think we should be aware of it because it's understanding some of the pressures that the providers are put under. But also maybe for apprentices as well, it's interesting to be able to know you have that ability to give that feedback. So employer feedback is also on here, which I didn't know. We've got quite a few employees here. I'd love to know, has anybody actually ever given any employer feedback about it through the accountability framework? And or did you even know that you could? Anybody is that of interest? Any employers know that you could give feedback? Malcolm?
We've had given feedback, but not necessarily dealt it through this, where we've got universities applying for feedback through the off-qual kind of thing, but not through this mechanism necessarily.
Okay. Caroline, is this something maybe you've heard of others doing, and maybe you understand the system a bit better than me? Is it a good way? Is it, like Malcolm said about off-call, is that a better way?
So when I've looked at this working with universities, don't want to put Danny on the spot. It is a measure that is looked at by usually around the quality assurance teams within the universities. I don't necessarily think it's being fed to the employers and the apprentices, apart from always a throwaway comment that you can do this. But yeah, you can go in there and you can actually use that to your advantage if you want to look at a particular university or a college or whatever before you send an apprentice there. There's a list of feedback and it actually breaks it down in terms of how good are they at communications, how good are they at this, how good are they at that, what about progress reviews, and is the training meeting employer requirements. I guess you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. Some only have 5 employers responding, some only have 3 apprentices responding. So, and I think when people fill these things in, they're probably more at the negative end rather than the positive end. So yeah, but it's really useful information because you know the challenges you might face before you go to that provider.
I had no idea that you could use it as like to check reviews in advance. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I'll
find a picture of one.
Oh, thanks for that, Malcolm.
I was going to ask: is it seen by the government? Do they see this as part of how the apprentices perform, so that if we as employers are not putting information in, it can reflect negatively because we haven't said anything positive? Caroline, I don't know.
Yeah, it's all publicly available and online. So yeah, it's there for government to see and for employers to see and apprentices to see as well. Yeah, it's all in the public domain. It's part of how the funding agency and Ofsted look at providers. So they use this data particularly.
So if we as employers want to make positive comments about our providers, about how they do this, then we should be doing this, shouldn't we? Otherwise, we're not giving the government full information.
Yeah, and it's a range, and it will be a range of questions. It's not just this. They'll ask you about the communication. They'll ask you about the progress reviews and that type of stuff, and you rate them 1 to 5.
Cool. Can somebody share the link in the chat today?
I will do.
So that
yeah.
Various employers there, if they
and
want.
You'll have to pick your particular provider that you want to report against.
We've got loads. Most of them are good. Really, all
there
of
you
them,
go.
to be honest. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks, Carla, for that. Do you have to be sort of the administrator for the apprenticeship account for your employer, or can any employer provide feedback on this?
That's a damn good question. I don't know, but I'll try and find out.
Fab. And is there anyone else I can pick on instead of Danny that's a provider, or is am I going to have to come and nobble you again, Danny? I think I can't see anyone. Danny, would you mind as the nominal provider just giving us any sort of feedback on this? Do you find it useful, and do you get a lot of feedback through this from your employers, or?
We don't get that much feedback. I think without meaning to turn it into a sales pitch, it's something we are looking at doing more on. We haven't done it enough in the last few years, to be perfectly honest with you. There's a variety, when it comes to universities, there's a variety of feedback forms for learners and students and things, and it's I don't think it's been used as effectively as it could have been in the past. But I think, echoing what kind of Caroline was saying there, it's making sure that it is used by all. And there's obvious statistics that we like to complain more than we do like to praise, but yeah, we certainly need to do more of it from the student and the employers thing, to make sure that we can improve the quality of services over the next few years as well.
So just out of interest then, right, so if you're an employer or an apprentice and you're looking for where do I go to get the best reviews, basically Google reviews or whatever it is the equivalent, we always go to one. So if providers aren't using this that much, or this isn't getting used that much by employers as well, what are the other ones? Because I get the impression that, maybe I'm wrong, and anyone can tell me that government are looking at, so DfE, I'm guessing it's their accountability framework, or Skills England, they would go to this. So are they almost looking in the wrong place for where you get most of that kind of reviews and feedback? Is that something we can feed back to them to? Because if they use this, it sounds, there was an FE News report the other day of a provider getting, I think it was 1.3 million taken off them. So is there a better place that you get that feedback as providers from employers and apprentices?
From what I hear, a lot of it is done more on individual basis, that we have conversations with employers and then we kind of talk it through emails, meetings, etc., etc. In terms of the formality of I will complete this form and provide feedback and reviews, I'm not sure that's done on a standardized basis as much as it could or should be, if I'm perfectly honest.
No, thank you for that, Dan. I've seen the and again, Harry, sorry for picking on you and Daddy as the nominals, but the you have like rate my apprenticeship seems to be like a website, for example, that's used by a lot of people, encouraged through some of the different things.
Yeah.
Is that
there's rate my apprenticeship, there's review ratings that come up when you're on the Find an Apprenticeship service. How much employers use those before they make a decision on training provider or course, I couldn't say, but I know those exist. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, then I was looking at this one. This obviously is probably the most important one that I'm most aware of, is apprentices past planned end date. Important, controversial, depends how you want to look at it, but this is still the 15%. So any organisations with more than 15% of the apprentices past their planned end date are deemed at risk, and anywhere in between 10 and 15. So this is the same as it was last year. And I think this is one of the bits that stood out for a lot of us, that was causing some friction within the sector and the industry. Trying to get those planned end dates correct at the start. This is why there's that push to get people finished at certain times. I don't know if anybody wants to share any views on this. It feels like this is a push or a friction around that. It doesn't seem like this is I don't know. I'm not sure this necessarily helps. It seems to sometimes push people to try and get through gateways before they're ready, and this seems to be one of the drivers. But maybe that's an unfair comment. I'm putting it out there if anybody would like to offer a different perspective. But this apprentice's past planned end date seems to be, from what I see, one of the things that causes issues within us, including even with the QARs as well as getting completion results. People might be pushed through to they're past their planned end date. It doesn't necessarily mean they're ready then to sit and pass, which I'll come on to in a second. But anybody got any comments on that? Anybody want to comment on that? Do you think that's too low, too high, that 15%? Go on, Malcolm.
Can I ask a silly question first? What does the terminology at risk imply of the employer? Does it mean that universities are advised not to use that employer?
So remember, this is for providers. So this is where this is why I sort of went into that rabbit hole to figure it out first time. This is only for providers, are only the only ones measured on this, not apprentices, not employers, providers only.
Yeah, I raise that because you talked about you've got apprentices, and therefore are you measuring those statistics of you? So it's harder when, as an employer, if you've got people in several different organisations, to know that if your cohort at the university has got 10 people on it, and if we've got one or two of them, how huge an impact one person at our organisation can have on a provider is unfair on the provider.
Yeah, and that was it. And when I think I did this last year, I put that against, if it was me, I know how hard I try with all mine. And even then you can't, there's no way to be 100% perfect all the time. It's brilliant if you can. So I can imagine it's really tough, that 15% to get to that for providers.
I want to ask providers linked to this, in order to answer the question, because I don't have an answer, is if we look at full-time or part-time degrees, what's the success rate of people starting those degrees, finishing them, and what's the success rate of those people starting those degrees, entering the industry? That might help understand whether these stats being set are reasonable or excessive. Does that make sense, Colin? Because I think where we're looking at it, we as an employer, we don't see the 18-year-olds who fail to get to uni or fail to finish their third year. We get to see them when they graduate. and even then, not everybody who graduates goes into engineering.
Yep.
So the success rate of an 18-year-old on the standard journey will be quite low. And maybe it's astonishingly high that 50% of people do a degree apprenticeship and finish it. We should be really proud of that statistic as opposed to be embarrassed of it. I haven't got my feel for that figure yet.
I don't know where the 15% come from either. It's a good challenge, Malcolm. I like that. Tracy, do you want to add something?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm the same with the 15%. I don't know where that figure comes from, but in terms of past planned end dates, many years ago when these contracts were set up, they were only given 6 months as to complete the actual endpoint assessment. And what we found over time is that that time span is too short due to the EPAO's not being able to slot us in. No disrespect, Richard, historically ICE only had 3 dates, and if you missed them, you had to wait for it. So I think that 15% is a misrepresentation of true facts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think from my personal experience, it's always been that 12 months after our apprentices have finished, well, any apprentice, even the ones externally as well, when they've finished their degree, their part-time qualification for a degree apprenticeship, that's usually when they're ready. That, I think, to be able to get the experience, get everything they need to pass EPA, that is usually what it takes. We've had, and I know we haven't got, let me just check, is Gareth on the call? Nope. So we have had discussions in the past around, I believe providers have found it difficult to be able to update their ILR dates after that first year. So if they, if an apprenticeship does take longer, because that's how long it takes the individual, every individual is different, they found it difficult to change those dates after the first year. I don't know, Tracy, if you found that, but that seems to be another problem that
yeah, we're having to put extensions to planned end dates, and it's because historically no one knew how long the EPA would take. It's all right, this finish your degree and in 6 months' time you can complete an endpoint assessment, but we found that not to be true. Like you say, it does take at least between 6 to 12 months to get someone through in a timely manner, so that they feel fully supported by the time they've got to that EPA.
Agreed. It just feels like that 15%, without knowing where it's come from, it does seem to create and cause some of that friction around trying to push people through before they're ready. Puts a lot of pressure on providers, especially because I think last year it was cut from 12 months to 6 months, wasn't it? That assessment was done, and it felt like that put a lot of pressure on yourselves, which then obviously creates some friction with employers. So that's still there. Still don't know why it's 15%, but yeah, I think just a bit of an appreciation of what the providers are up against is required. I'm definitely not saying I'll be telling everybody to sit early, but I think we have to help our providers to at least understand the position they're in. And then this one, I don't think I'd read last year, but I thought this was interesting, is withdrawals. So we'll assess organisations as at risk if withdrawals are greater than or equal to 20% of the total number of apprentices. Now, I can't, anybody can tell me if this was in the previous one last year before. It was? Okay, it was. Then I just hadn't read it, my fault. I thought this was interesting, because this does feel like across our industry that there are arbitrary dates being set by some of our training organisations that if you're not ready by a certain date, then we'll withdraw you from the programme. There have been several examples of that recorded over the last couple of years. It does feel like now, actually, does that then, I didn't get a chance to do this, but what I was hoping to have done, if I added up your percentage to stay, what was the maximum percentage that you could have of past planned end dates plus 20% withdrawals plus whatever one of the other one was. If I added up all those percentages that you could do without going at risk, what does that actually leave you with as the percentage of apprentices that could complete without ending up at risk? I don't know if maybe it's something I can do afterwards and share next time. but it seems like a delicate tightrope that everyone's trying to walk here between these. But I thought that 20% stood out to me as quite important, because if that is something that is going on, continues to go on, that might actually become a bit more prevalent. And if people are starting to say, if you're not ready after whatever arbitrary time, we'll withdraw the individuals, that was the one to me that thought actually that might be the one that gets breached the most. I'll pause there in case anybody wants to comment on that, if anybody's got any experiences they wanted to share, but that certainly feels like one that's one to watch, I think, on the withdrawals. Tracy, go for
Sorry.
it.
Yeah, it's me again. Yeah, but you'll find now that once now the degrees are becoming integrated, this withdrawal should reduce significantly. There's no escape. With the non-integrated, they could get the degree and withdraw. With the integrated, they don't get the degree until they've passed their EPA. So I think this figure will change dramatically.
I was thinking more for the ones that are still on non-integrated. Those are the ones that,
Right.
from the stories across that I hear from various places, they're the ones that are told, if you're not going to sit by a certain date, we will withdraw. And as it's being done across entire cohorts, that 20% must be getting hit now. Caroline? Oh, sorry. Go on, Tracy. Do you have?
Yeah, we were just saying we try and keep them on as long as we possibly can, because sometimes they finish the degree, they've been on study for 5 years and they've had enough, basically.
Yeah.
So we just we try and encourage them as long as we can, until there's the last chance that they just aren't going to engage. So
Great.
I'm sure other training providers do that as well.
Thanks, Tracy. Caroline?
Yeah, I think we still will have withdrawals from the early start of the programs, people dropping out with the first year of academic study, the second year of academic study, because they still don't want to go on, or they're not able to go on to the full degree. So that withdrawals will be now peaking much earlier, as it probably does in 2 peaks. People drop off at the start of the first couple of years, and then they drop off by non-completion of the non-integrated EPA. Be careful with this one. Withdrawals is one thing. The integrated piece, you still need to complete your entire program. So yeah, apprentice plus planned end date on the integrated one will probably stretch out further. So be careful what you wish for, because one or the other one will be affected.
That tightrope. Yep. So thanks, Caroline. Appreciate that. And there was just a handy table at the end then that sort of put them all together. So this was the bit that I didn't have time to. I was going to try and add all those up. How you try and avoid being at risk and still getting through all those percentages. I hadn't quite navigated it and figured it out, but I'm sure there's something there to look at. I'll do that for next time. So before I move on, did anybody have any last comments around accountability framework? I'll share the link to that. So if anybody wanted to have a look at it afterwards, you've already done it, Caroline. Thank you. Excellent. So it got me thinking then, around this time of year, start of the year, there's a couple of discussions that are going on that actually they always seem to happen around the same sort of time of year, always. So for line managers, what should we be doing? What shouldn't we be doing? Am I sticking my nose in my places that don't belong? I wasn't quite sure, so I thought I'd put this out there. But around this time of year, it might seem odd to others, but I do start talking about dissertations. So where you've got students in for the civil engineering, non-integrated civil engineering degree apprenticeships, but I suppose it applies to anyone. The year before, start talking about dissertations. And around this time, the 4th years, start having the chat about it. We always talk about data. And again, I just thought I was sharing this because in case there's other line managers out thinking, why should I do that? And what even should I be talking about? And why am I talking about it? All I've ever done is just think about my own personal experiences, which is, what did I want, and feedback from others as well. So already having the chats with the 4th years before they're getting into it, I think they look at getting a dissertation assigned in September. Start talking to them about data. What is it that you're doing? What is it you're thinking of? And can you get good data? So one of those discussions was with somebody who's doing a site placement at the moment. He's doing a quality inspection role, and it's for structures. So he's going to have loads of data around concrete testing, for example. And I don't know if there's anyone here that's probably done a dissertation or anything more recently than me. Mine was a few years ago. That it's the quality of your data is what you need to be able to make sure you get assessed. And again, as a line manager trying to help our apprentices, I'm sure Malcolm, you're going to have something to say on this. I'm looking forward to this. But it's trying to give them the best guidance that we can. Remembering the apprenticeship, we consistently say the apprenticeship is not just a part-time qualification. But as a line manager, if we're here to support them with their apprenticeship, that means we've also got to support them with their part-time qualification, of which this dissertation is a key part, and helping them to plan that, especially around their times, starting to plan ahead so they don't get swamped. Start forward planning. So this is always what we talk about. We have discussions around of you need to start thinking about getting your attributes caught up, or whatever your competencies are going to be. If it's a different degree, do that before that dissertation kicks in. Have a think about what you're going to do, because to be honest, I think for the last 3 years now, between October and April, all of my apprentices have ditched professional development. They've ditched attributes because of capacity. They just can't do. Final year students are now, they're a lot more useful. They're a lot more busier at work. They've got their dissertation. They've got to keep their CPD going anyway. They've got to keep their off-the-job training going as a bare minimum. They have to do something every month. And it always seems to be writing up evidence that's one of those things that can actually get parked for a few months. They need headspace to concentrate. So those are some of the discussions that always come up, but you need to have that forward planning. And then as employers, it's actually to have that discussion. I thought it might seem, again, because it's more that part-time qualification bit, we always say, yeah, we know the unions have got that, or the colleges have got that covered, but we've got to do our part as well. And about the titles as well. That is something that, again, over the last 3 years, it might seem that it's an odd thing for a chartered civil engineer to be chatting about a dissertation title, but actually, if we're their line manager, in my opinion, we should be supporting them on this. So I'm putting it out there. Is anybody else doing this? Does anyone think this is a stupid thing that I shouldn't be doing as part of line management? Is it good, bad? Anybody want to share anything on that? Caroline, thumbs up. Yes, great.
I'm going to say line managers are going to need to start doing this, because it's part of the endpoint assessment process in the integrated endpoint assessment. The dissertation becomes the endpoint assessment project, which they then have to do, and it has to be agreed between the 3 parties. So this is really good practice. Crack on with it.
Great. Thanks, Caroline. Mike?
Yeah, obviously I've got a few apprentices that I'm mentor supported IPD. They're not in company schemes. So this comes up. I'm not their line manager, but I look at it, all that data is correct, but it's a question for me of whether they want to get a higher grade or spend less time. And it depends what they see, what they want. They've got access to other resources in their business. So do they want to really sweat it and get something new, or do they want to take their job role and get a good 2-1 dissertation? And that might be a discussion that you can have with your apprentices as well. Not everybody wants to get that first, or can get that first, or has the time or headspace to really get that first class. But a good 2-1 from data that's available to the business could be a less effort ride for them if they're struggling with everything else in their final year.
Yeah, it's where you can get that from is so important, and it can take so long to get that data. I've just spotted Aaron, you've snuck in as well. I'm not sure at what time, so that's good. Danny will be relieved. But I know that data was so important, but you can't always get access to it. I think it was it last year or the year before, where we were looking at, I had someone looking at carbon calculations, and it's something everyone talks about, carbon calculations, carbon footprints on projects. Everyone's always talking about it. Surely there's got to be loads of information out there. And Malcolm's spot on. And after looking at this, the individual found that there was actually only the National Highways carbon calculator that had any decent information in it, and then actually trying to get values for what was captured in different elements of projects was really difficult. Something that we talk about all the time. Everyone says, yeah, we know loads about it. Once the individual started to look into it, he really struggled for data, which is why I think starting to talk to your 4th years now, before they get into there, look at data is really important. So, Harry, can I pick on you again? I promise this will probably be the last time. Probably.
Of course you can, Colin.
Yes, good man. What? How did you find prepping for your dissertation and data especially? Was it easy to find data?
It was okay. My data was lab based, so I had a plan set out with Aggregate Industries to go to their research and development lab and actually undertake it alongside those guys. So it wasn't so bad for me. I do know a lot of other apprentices who did really struggle to get data for their dissertation, for their practical portion. It took a lot of asking friends, asking family, and as many people as possible in their workplaces to try and get that data. It did feel like a struggle from a third party view. So I got quite fortunate in it. But yeah, for the lit review, it wasn't so bad. I struggled because my dissertation was very niche. So there wasn't loads of data out there. I had to look abroad for a lot of it. But I got there in the end.
Well done, Harry. And we're very proud of you for doing that. Harry brings up a good point there. So working with our supply chain, completely missed that point. I think there's a lot of data can be found from working with our suppliers. As Harry's just said, they're working with Aggregate Industries, other people like that. There's an amazing amount of information out there. And I think it was, I'm sure I was chatting to somebody this time last year around, we were talking about VRS and could they go to people like, is it Hill and Smith and people like that? They'll have their testing centres. So engaging with supply chain, again, early enough, seems like a really good thing that we can access within our sector. Malcolm?
It's a question possibly for Mike and Harry, so I'll pick on Harry if you're not going to pick on him, Colin.
All right, thanks.
You said something really glibly, Mike, to say they've got to work out whether they want a first or a 2-1. And I mean glib in a nice way. If you're in industry, it's difficult to know what that means. And also it's difficult if you're in industry, that a high level of competence that your average chartered engineer with 5 or 10 years of experience, bringing that down to a high bachelor degree, you might be looking at dissertations of PhD quality and not overstretching your degree apprentice. Colin, how do you manage that, or Mike? And how does that feel from a degree apprentice point of view? You know, that ambitious stretch that we work at as mentors.
You go first, Mike, because I know what my answer to this is. Cool.
The way I look at it is obviously through the lens of the grade descriptors. Look at the grade descriptors that they get from the university. They're open public source. And then highlight literally, physically, what do I need to do to get that grade? What is the key indicator I need to analyze, I need to review, I need to reflect, I need to consider, and do you demonstrate that? And where do you want to be? And back in my day, Malcolm, 67% average over 3 years got you a 2-2, not a 2-1. I'm going to send my degree back and get it regraded to a 2-1. But nonetheless, the grade that you want, the students tend to know. They tend to target the grade descriptors. They tend to target what courses and modules are worth, where they need. So most students I've seen through discussions with lecturers know what's going on, and they can do this for the dissertation. I think the apprentices have a massive advantage compared to full-time 3 years, no industry involvement, because they've got nobody to talk to. They haven't got a mentor to sit down and guide. But that's the way that I would look at it, as advising a student and the student. And it's not for me to tell them what they must do. It's for them to decide how they want to go through life to get the grades they want with whatever else is going on.
Thank you.
And that can be the picking through. But the grade descriptors are the way to decide what effort they put in and where they put it.
So my answer is easy, and I think I might have shared this on here before. After I think like a year or 2 years of my first set of apprentices, there was a passing comment that one of them made, and it sounded like they were all expecting me. They all thought that I expected them to get firsts. So I had to sit them all down and share with them that I didn't get first. I got a 2-2, and I thought it was a bit rich of me saying that they all had to get first when I worked really hard, and I'm really proud of what I got. I know how hard I worked. and I'm proud to have that 2-2. It's whatever they're happy with. All I ask is they do their best. That's it. And I personally think that's reasonable and fair, especially thinking around how we started the call, with various different challenges for people. I think as long as every one of them can tell me they've done their best, I'm not fussed what they come out with at all, genuinely. And because I also felt it sounded like we had that call because they felt pressure was being put on them to get a first. It was that expectation.
First is the minimum, isn't it? Is often the misunderstood expectation.
Yeah, and that was it. And I thought that was unfair. I mean, I didn't get it, so it feels like for me to put that pressure on them, it's completely unfair. And I don't believe, unless other businesses have this, I don't believe there is a minimum required by the business. We expect them to pass. We expect them to pass their modules, to do their best. But I honestly didn't think it was my right or in any position to expect anyone to do better than me. So we've got Aaron now on, so I don't have to pick on Danny. But it'd be interesting to know if the unis think that's the wrong approach or not. But for me, it seemed only fair to ask them to do their best.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's very well, isn't it, to aim for the sky, but I don't think you should really be made to feel bad if you don't quite get there. I don't know if there's any other employees on the call where sometimes they will have certain expectations and they will look at promotions based upon the classifications of degrees. Because if you look at some graduate job postings, they actually ask for a first or 2-1. The 2-2 isn't really within their description, which, it's a bit of a shame, isn't it, really? Especially when you think about apprentices, they're going to have 5 years experience, aren't they, by the end of this?
Yeah.
Very different to a normal graduate.
Thanks for that, Aaron. Anyone else got any comments on this? No? Oh, okay. I just wanted to put that out there, just again, if other people weren't thinking about it. And yeah, I didn't intend to talk around the level, but that was spot on, Malcolm. That's a really good point. And I hope that people don't feel that pressure. That if for me, the right thing is to do the best you can. So where this originally started was actually around EPA and Gateway. I snuck in that dissertation one after I'd written this section. But same kind of things, same kind of discussions. What is it that around this time of year that as a line manager should we be doing? So there's the one we always talk about. If you're not ready, don't pass through Gateway. That it's there. It's in the standard. It's in the funding rules. If you're not ready, don't. But part of that is around. I had an engineering discussion with somebody recently and trying to figure out are they ready or not. And we ditched everything to tell them to stop all the. I didn't want them to go through like their attributes or their report. That wasn't. I wanted them to talk to me about engineering, and that for me was one of the indicators about whether they're actually ready or not. It wasn't just looking at a list on a bullet point list of can I say they've ticked all these things? Do they sound like an engineer? Do they feel like that's for me how I was able to gauge are they ready or not? I mean, again, I don't know what others use, but for me, actually just having it was only a 20-minute engineering discussion. That's all it was. And a lot of it was around, great. Tell me the forces behind that. Tell me the engineering principles that sit behind that. That's all it was. It's not that. It's not overcomplicated. I'm not the most technical person. It was just actually let's have an engineering discussion. It wasn't really come from any formal training or any structure, but for me, it felt like the right thing to do when I'm trying to gauge, how am I supporting my apprentice. I want to talk. That was the bit that for me, I wanted to make sure that we could talk around. We talked around the EPA as well. So this would be for non-integrated civil engineering degree apprenticeship. So complementing both the report and the presentation. You don't want to miss your opportunities by just repeating the same thing over again. And one of the things that came up in the discussion again was around the size of the project. Well, the project's not that, it's not big enough. That's a load of rubbish. It's all about, as that second point says, it's about the engineering, it's about the principles, it's about the KSBs, it's about the attributes. It doesn't say anywhere, if you don't work on a £100 million project, you can't sit your EPA. That's not what it says at all. And one of the ones we're discussing at the moment is just around the T-junction. That's it. It's an access track and it's a T-junction. And the apprentice, he didn't realise this simple junction has got all the engineering in there, it's got sustainability in there, he's got commercial attributes on there, he's leading a team. Teams, by the way, don't need to be 5 to 10 people. A team is other people. You can still demonstrate those same skills. And it was just those kind of discussions, but that's something that always seems to come up every year as well. I can't remember if I discussed it last year or not, but the one that came up last year was around signs. And the apprentice was we were talking around signs and going through the process. And if you've done sign design, very much it's inputting information into a software, but that might seem basic and it might seem like you're not actually demonstrating it. But if the individual can demonstrate they understand the engineering decisions that they're making and the engineering options and the reasons they're making those selections behind every single one of those, it's an opportunity to demonstrate all the KSBs and the attributes. And that's exactly what they did. It doesn't have to be this huge project. So again, if as line managers or businesses, and we're trying to think what kind of things do I need to give my apprentices to be able to sit that EPA, it is the opportunity to work on the project, take some responsibility, and actually get into some of those details to explain the engineering that sits behind it. One of the other things that also came up was it's not just about the engineering. You've got to demonstrate all the KSBs and all the attributes. So if you can't do them all, there was a case where everything was very much engineering focused and they completely missed everything else. You've got to pass them all. It's all those elements to both the standard and if you're going for iEng with the attributes. So I just thought that would be useful to share some of those discussions. Oh, and the one that I was always showing as well is your reviewers start with a blank piece of paper. So it's down to you to demonstrate and give them the information they want you to pass. Malcolm, Richard, you guys are probably the closest to this kind of piece of it, but that's my understanding is they want you to pass, just give them the evidence, give them the information. Is that right, Malcolm?
100%, especially iEng level. It's lay your cards out, be honest, and what you can do. I think the biggest challenge for me is one, I put a little comment in here about engineering principles. What do we mean? I think for iEng with degree apprentices, it's about their specialism often. They won't have the breadth of experience in things. So they might be good at geotechnics or good at highways or good at railways. They won't necessarily be good at several things at this level. I think the students or apprentices struggle because they're taught 4 or 5 different subjects and they need to be good at all of them for my iEng. It's like, probably not. You'll probably be good at one of them. And go for those principles when you go forward. Any of us know our degree we don't use 100% of our degree.
Nope.
But the apprentices think that they need to use 100% of their degree in their EPA. It's like, no. Be the engineer you are, I think is the important one. The other thing, most apprentices aren't. I've been talking to one of our apprentices who's 100% ready for her EPA, absolutely should be doing it tomorrow, but they are not aware of their own skill sets. And just spending an hour chatting to her and discussing her skill sets and what she could do, was able to say, but you do this and you do that and you do that. By the end of the hour, she was stunned by how clever she was, because she said, but that's my day job. It's like, yeah, you've made it, but the language that the ICE, the government, KSBs use don't always chime, isn't it? And I think it's like Pokemon. You've got to have them all, collect them all kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the technical one is the most obvious one. If they haven't got the engineer, then the other skills probably are are irrelevant at that level.
It's the one that if the project doesn't help them to get that, the others I think you can find bits in there, but if your project and the experience you're giving them doesn't allow them to demonstrate the engineering principles, then they won't pass. And that's why, again, as employers, the experience and that project that we give them is so important. But they can't pass without that.
But they can be a contractor not doing calculations as such and still building roads in the way a structural engineer might design a steel frame. It's radically different what engineering principles are in those two areas.
Totally agree. Yep. Thank you for that, Malcolm. And the last one. This is one I'm sure I've said before, the confidence bit. So out of all of this stuff that we've talked about, it's only them in the review. So as much as we want to help them, we can guide them through even mocks, or we can support them through whatever. They're the only ones in that review. And I do sometimes think it's unfair that if you put somebody forward we've got to support them and give them as much help as you can, but there's a balance. They've got to be ready to actually be able to do this on their own. That's the bit we've got to build them up, build their confidence so they can answer the questions, which is why in that sign design example, the individual actually looked at drainage. They were doing a great piece of drainage before, bigger project, much sexier stuff, but they weren't as confident. We've got to set them up for success, and confidence for me is so key in that. I better hurry up now. So again, for the employers bit, just then understanding that we shouldn't be putting them through till they're working at or above that level. An apprenticeship is a job with training, and it's that giving them the chance to get the experiences to pass. So we were talking about the accountability framework. We want people getting through. We want people passing. We want them doing it in a timely manner. But there's the element that us as employers, we've got to give them those opportunities and give them the support as well to do that. So there is, we've got to remember our part. I just put those on there again to sort of start planning early so that when they get to that point, they're ready. This isn't start thinking the year before, which is why we're having these discussions now for the final years. You've always, even from year one, start thinking ahead. How am I going to get them to EPA? How am I going to get them through this successfully? Okay, there's 3 minutes left. Thank you for everyone that's added to this. I'm not sure if anybody's got any other questions or anything they wanted to share. Anybody got anything they wanted to ask around? No? Aaron, while you were on, you missed the slide at the start where I bigged you up and said thank you for all the work you're doing to help the apprentice. That's any apprentices that get in a redundant place. I know you've done this in the past, and I know you offer it so well done. Thank you for that.
Okay.
It's really appreciated.
I'll have to rerun the recording, and especially, won't I?
Yeah, you had your own slide and everything. It was orange. Well, yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, that person, the most recent one, is still looking. From when I spoke to him on Thursday. So if anybody knows of anything, I did try to. I won't call it speed dating, but I just so happened that the table that she sat on, she was with another engineering company, so excellent. I kind of pulled them aside beforehand, but I don't think they've quite got any positions at the moment. But if anyone's got any ideas around that, because it does seem to be happening more and more. With the state of some companies at the moment not being able to keep people on and making redundancies. So if anyone knows of any areas to reach out and post details or anything like that, then please do let me know.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, so thank you everybody then for your involvement. I will share the recording after this. I will definitely have to figure out a new invite for 2026, Malcolm. And I'll probably post it. I'll share it in the chat here, and then I'll also post it on LinkedIn as well, because I keep crashing the invite from this, so I can't extend it anymore. It's terrible. Okay, thank you everybody for your time. Enjoy your weekends, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers all. Bye bye.